Voyager just crossed the edge of the solar system and found something wild. Imagine a piece of technology built in the mid-70s, back when the world was still using rotary phones and disco was king. Now, imagine that same machine, 45 years later, hurtling through the pitch-black void, further away from home than anything else we've ever built. It's out there, totally alone, screaming back to Earth across billions of miles of empty space. For decades, scientists had a pretty solid idea of what to expect. When Voyager finally hit the edge, they figured it would be like leaving a party and stepping into a quiet, dark street. A smooth, predictable transition into the silence of interstellar space. They thought the physics would be simple. The sun's influence fades, and things just stop. But as Voyager crossed that final frontier, the data it sent back didn't just surprise the team at NASA, it defied everything they thought they knew. Instead of a calm, empty void, the probe started picking up readings that felt wrong. The physics didn't match the math. Something out there was pushing back, behaving in a way that felt like it belonged in a sci-fi movie rather than a textbook. It wasn't silent, and it definitely wasn't predictable. It was a mystery that left the smartest people on our planet scratching their heads, realizing that the deeper we go into the dark, the less we actually understand about the neighborhood we live in. To understand how we got here, we have to look back to 1977. That's when Voyager first took off, originally designed for what was supposed to be a 5-year tour of the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn. It was a hit-and-run mission to see the big guys up close and move on. But Voyager didn't stop. It kept going, powered by a small nuclear heart, pushing past Uranus, past Neptune, and eventually toward the very limit of our sun's reach. Right now, it's navigating a place called the Heliopause. Think of it like a protective skin, or a giant bubble blown by the sun. This bubble, the heliosphere, is what keeps us safe, shielding our entire solar system from the harsh, high-energy radiation of the rest of the galaxy. It's the ultimate boundary between our neighborhood and the deep, open ocean of interstellar space. When Voyager finally punched through that bubble, it wasn't just a milestone. It was the first time humanity had ever reached the outside. We were finally dipping our toes into the cosmic ocean, expecting to find a still, quiet sea. But the moment Voyager crossed that line, the sensors lit up. The transition wasn't a fade-out. It was a collision. It was the moment we realized that the edge of our world isn't a wall. It's a gateway to something much more chaotic than we ever dared to imagine. This wasn't the empty space we were promised. This was something else entirely. When the data finally started trickling back to the Deep Space Network, the rooms at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory didn't erupt in immediate cheers. Instead, there was this heavy, confused silence. The scientists were looking at numbers that shouldn't have existed. See, for decades, the prevailing theory was that as you move away from the sun, the environment should get thinner, quieter, and more sparse. It makes sense, right? The further you get from a light source or a heat source, the less influence it has. We expected the plasma, that superheated ionized gas that fills the space between stars, to basically peter out into a whisper. We thought Voyager would drift into a calm, dark lake of nothingness. But the reality was the exact opposite. As Voyager 1 and later Voyager 2 punched through the heliopause, the density of the plasma didn't drop. It spiked. It was as if the probe had spent 40 years traveling through a light mist, only to suddenly plunge into a thick, heavy fog. This was the first wild discovery that turned our understanding of the galaxy upside down. In the scientific community, we call this the interstellar medium, but that sounds way too clinical for what's actually happening out there. Imagine you're walking through a crowded city, and suddenly you step through a door into a room that's even more packed than the street you just left. That's what Voyager found. The density of the electrons around the spacecraft jumped by a factor of nearly 40. It was a physical wall of pressure that we simply didn't see coming. And it wasn't just a fluke or a temporary bump in the road. This density stayed high, proving that the space between the stars isn't just an empty void. It's a pressurized, active, and incredibly dense environment that is constantly pushing back against our solar system. We realized that our sun isn't just sitting in space. It's fighting for its life, blowing a giant bubble against a cosmic tide that is much stronger than we ever imagined. But the density wasn't the only thing that caught us off guard. There was also the sound. Now, technically, space is a vacuum, so you can't hear anything in the traditional sense, but the plasma vibrates. Voyager's instruments are capable of picking up these plasma oscillations, and what they recorded was a faint, persistent, and haunting hum. It wasn't the chaotic roar of the solar wind we were used to. It was a steady, narrow-frequency vibration. It's been described as a cosmic hum, a sort of background music that the universe plays when no one is around to listen. It's the sound of the interstellar medium itself, vibrating with the energy of distant supernovae and the movements of the galaxy. For the scientists listening back on Earth, it was like hearing the heartbeat of the Milky Way for the first time. It was a reminder that Voyager isn't just traveling through nothing. It's traveling through a medium that is alive with energy and information. And then there were the tsunamis. This is where things get really crazy. Even though Voyager is billions of miles away from the Sun, it's still being affected by it in ways that seem to defy the scale of space. Every now and then, the Sun lets out a massive burp, a coronal mass ejection. These are giant clouds of solar material and magnetic fields that blast off the Sun's surface. We see them on Earth as auroras, or sometimes they mess with our satellites, but we always assumed they just sort of dissipated by the time they reached the outer planets. We were wrong. These solar storms travel all the way to the edge of the solar system, and when they hit the boundary of the heliopause, they create a literal shockwave. It's a plasma tsunami that ripples through the interstellar medium, causing everything around Voyager to shake and vibrate. It means that even out there, in the deep dark, the Sun still has a reach that can slap the very fabric of the galaxy. It's a level of power that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. This discovery changed the way we look at our place in the universe. We used to think of the solar system as this isolated island, floating peacefully in a quiet ocean. Now, we know we're living inside a pressurized bubble that is constantly being battered by the external forces of the galaxy. Our heliosphere is a shield, a protective cocoon that is absorbing the impact of a much more violent and energetic interstellar environment than we ever gave it credit for. If that bubble were to weaken, or if we were to move into an even denser part of the galaxy, the radiation levels within our solar system would skyrocket. We are essentially riding in a submarine, and Voyager just told us that the water pressure outside is a lot higher than the engineers predicted. As we look at these ancient instruments, hardware that was designed when computers still used magnetic tape and had less processing power than a modern car key, it's mind-blowing that they're still functioning well enough to tell us these secrets. We're talking about technology from an era where the idea of the internet was still a dream, yet it's outperforming our wildest expectations. But there's a bittersweet side to this story. These discoveries are coming at a time when Voyager is literally running on fumes. The spacecraft is powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators, basically small chunks of decaying plutonium that generate heat, which is then converted into electricity. Every single year, that power supply drops by about 4 watts. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're already operating on the bare minimum, every watt is a lifeline. To keep the mission alive, engineers at NASA have had to become incredibly creative. They've been turning off non-essential systems one by one. First, it was the cameras. Voyager hasn't seen anything in decades because there's nothing to see in the dark, and the power was better used elsewhere. Then, they started turning off heaters. letting the instruments freeze to temperatures that would break almost any other piece of machinery. But Voyager just keeps on ticking. It's a testament to the grit and over-engineering of the 1970s. They built it to last, but they never dreamed it would last this long or go this far. We are now in a race against time. We are getting the most important data in the history of space exploration, but we're getting it from a messenger that is slowly dying. Within the next few years, the power will likely drop below the level needed to keep even one instrument running. At GIU point, Voyager will fall silent. It will continue its journey, of course. Physics dictates that it will keep drifting through the void for millions, perhaps billions of years. It's carrying the golden record, a copper phonograph record containing the sounds and sights of Earth, a message in a bottle for anyone who might find it in the distant future. But for us, the connection will be severed. We will lose our eyes and ears in the interstellar deep. These current readings, the hum, the density spikes, the tsunamis, are the final transmissions from a pioneer that has gone where no one else can follow. It's a humbling thought. We spent thousands of years looking at the stars and wondering what was out there. We built myths and legends about the heavens, and then, in one brief flash of human history, we actually sent something out to check. What we found wasn't a cold, dead vacuum, but a vibrant, pressurized, and noisy frontier. Voyager has shown us that the universe is far more complex and far more connected than we ever imagined. It's shown us that our sun isn't just a light in the sky, but a protector that carves out a home for us in a chaotic galaxy. And even as the probe's heart beats for the last few times, it continues to remind us of the most important lesson of exploration, that no matter how much we think we know, the universe always has one more surprise waiting for us just beyond the horizon. We are a small species from a small planet, but through this little tin can in the dark, we have managed to touch the very edge of forever. And in that touch, we found something truly wild. This fundamental shift in our understanding doesn't just stay within the confines of a laboratory or a peer-reviewed journal. It forces us to completely rewrite the maps of our local galactic neighborhood. For decades, the diagrams in every astronomy textbook showed the heliosphere as this neat, comet-shaped teardrop, with a long tail trailing behind us as we move through the galaxy. We assumed the bow shock, the point where our solar system hits the interstellar medium, was a predictable, fixed boundary. But Voyager's data suggests that our home is much more squishy and dynamic than those drawings led us to believe. We've discovered that the boundary is breathing. It's moving in and out, reacting to the solar cycle in a rhythmic dance that spans 11 years at a time. This means that the edge isn't a destination you can just mark on a map. It's a shifting, shimmering frontier that is constantly being reshaped by the tug-of-war between the sun's breath and the pressure of the stars. The implications of this are massive for the future of human spaceflight. If we ever intend to send humans, or even more advanced robotic probes, to neighboring star systems like Alpha Centauri, we now know that the weather outside our bubble is far more treacherous than we anticipated. The high density of the plasma and the intensity of the cosmic rays out there act like a thick wall of radiation. Our sun, in its quiet, constant way, has been doing the heavy lifting of protecting us for billions of years. It's like we've been living in a house with thick walls, and Voyager just stepped out the front door and realized there's a Category 5 hurricane howling in the driveway. This realization changes the math for how we shield future spacecraft and how we perceive the emptiness of the Great Dim. It turns out the void is anything but empty. It is a high-energy environment that requires a whole new kind of physics to navigate. But perhaps the most baffling thing Voyager found wasn't just the density or the sound, but the strange behavior of the magnetic fields. Scientists had a very specific prediction. They thought that when Voyager crossed the heliopause, the direction of the magnetic field would flip significantly. They expected to see the sun's magnetic field lines end and the galaxy's field lines begin, like crossing a border between two countries with different flags. But that's not what happened. The magnetic field didn't flip. It just got stronger and stayed aligned in a way that left everyone stumped. It's as if the sun and the galaxy have worked out some kind of secret handshake, a magnetic connection that we still don't fully understand. This magnetic highway allowed particles from inside our solar system to zip out and particles from the galaxy to zoom in, creating a sort of cosmic mixing zone that shouldn't exist according to our old models. It's a reminder that nature doesn't like to follow the neat little lines we draw in our notebooks. As we grapple with these scientific mysteries, we also have to face the cold, hard reality of the mission's clock. We are currently living through the long goodbye. Voyager 1 and 2 are effectively on life support. Every year, the mission controllers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory have to make agonizing decisions about what to kill next. They are like doctors trying to save a patient by deciding which non-essential organs can be removed. They've already turned off the cameras, the heaters, and several of the primary sensors. To keep the remaining instruments alive, they've had to hack the spacecraft's ancient code. Code written in assembly languages that are almost forgotten by modern programmers. There are stories of retired engineers coming back into the office, now in their 80s, because they are the only ones who remember how the specific logic gates of 1972 actually function. It's a beautiful human story of dedication, a group of people on a tiny blue dot trying to keep a flickering candle lit 15 billion miles away. Think about the sheer audacity of that for a second. We are talking to a machine that has less memory than the chip in your credit card. It's using a transmitter that has the power of a refrigerator light bulb. By the time Voyager's signal reaches Earth, it is so incredibly faint that it's almost indistinguishable from the background noise of the universe. It takes over 22 hours for a command sent from Earth to reach the probe, and another 22 hours to hear back if it worked. It's the slowest, most high-stakes conversation in human history. And yet, this ancient piece of hardware is outperforming the most expensive satellites we've launched in the last decade. It was built in an era of slide rules and physical blueprints, designed with a level of over-engineering that we rarely see in our modern world of planned obsolescence. It wasn't just built to work, it was built to endure. In the next few years, the plutonium will finally decay to a point where the lights go out for good. The last beep will hit the giant radio dishes of the Deep Space Network, and then silence. But that won't be the end of Voyager's story. In fact, in some ways, it's just the beginning of its longest chapter. Once the power dies, Voyager becomes a silent ambassador. Because it's traveling in a vacuum, there's no wind to erode it, no water to rust it, and no gravity to pull it down. It will drift through the Milky Way for millions, perhaps billions of years, long after our cities have crumbled to dust, long after the sun has expanded and swallowed the Earth, and perhaps even after humanity itself has evolved into something else or vanished entirely. Those two probes will still be out there. They carry with them the golden record, a gold-plated copper disc containing the sounds of wind and rain, the music of Bach and Chuck Berry, and greetings in 55 different languages. It's a time capsule of who we were in 1977. It's a bit of a gamble, a message in a bottle thrown into the widest ocean imaginable. The chances of it ever being found are infinitesimally small, but that's not really the point. The point is that we tried. We reached out into the dark and said, "We were here. This is what we sounded like. This is what we loved." Voyager is the only part of our civilization that is effectively immortal. It is our footprint in the stars, a permanent record of a species that was curious enough to wonder what was over the next hill. Looking back at those wild findings, the unexpected density, the cosmic hum, the plasma tsunamis, they serve as a final gift from a loyal scout. They remind us that the universe is not a static, empty place. It's a living, breathing, and incredibly complex system. We used to think the edge of the solar system was the end of the story, the final chapter in our journey. But Voyager has shown us that it's actually just the prologue. Beyond our little protective bubble lies a vast, energetic, and mysterious realm that we are only just beginning to glimpse. We are like children looking through a keyhole at a world we can't yet enter. As Voyager fades into the dark, it leaves us with a sense of profound humility. We are a people who can build a machine out of metal and silicon and send it across the stars to touch the face of the deep. We are capable of incredible things when we look upward instead of downward. The something wild that Voyager found wasn't just a scientific anomaly. It was a mirror. It showed us our own tenacity, our own curiosity, and our own place in the grand, sweeping narrative of the cosmos. The probe may fall silent, and the mission may officially end, but the trail it blazed will remain. We are no longer a species confined to a single sun. We have reached the outside. We have heard the hum of the galaxy. And even when the last bit of data is received, and the screens at NASA go dark, we will know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we are part of something much, much bigger than ourselves. Voyager is no longer just a NASA mission. It is a part of the universe now, drifting forever as a testament to the moment a small, fragile species decided to reach out and touch the infinite.